A woman values the man who knows when to step away because his distance is not rejection. It's self-respect. He doesn't react to chaos. He protects his peace. His boundaries create safety. His silence brings clarity. And his ability to walk away shows strength that makes his presence impossible to ignore. Stepping away isn't abandonment. It's emotional self-respect. It's the moment a man understands that staying in a situation that drains him, disrespects him, or confuses him is far more damaging than the discomfort of taking a step back. People often mistake distance for detachment, but it's not. Distance is clarity. Distance is maturity. Distance is the strength to pause instead of forcing something that is no longer flowing in a healthy direction. When a man steps away, he's not running from the connection. He's refusing to lose himself inside it. He's choosing to respond, not react. He's choosing peace, not chaos. He's choosing his standards, not his insecurities. And that shift changes the entire dynamic of the relationship. Because when a man has the courage to step back, he's not sending the message, I don't care. He's sending the message, I care about myself too. Emotional self-respect is the foundation of every healthy connection. Without it, love becomes attachment. Conversation becomes conflict. Connection becomes control. But when a man protects his emotional space, he protects the relationship itself. He gives the woman space to breathe, to reflect, to feel without pressure. He creates room for honesty. He creates room for growth. He creates room for both people to return as better versions of themselves. The power in stepping away comes from intention. He's not stepping away to punish, to manipulate, or to create fear. He's stepping away because something within him says, I deserve clarity. I deserve peace. I deserve reciprocity. And when a man honors that voice, he becomes grounded. He becomes centered. He becomes emotionally stable. A quality women trust deeply. Women don't want a man who clings out of fear. They don't want a man who needs constant reassurance. They don't want a man who stays silent in chaos just to keep the peace on the surface. They want a man who knows his limits, who can communicate without collapsing, who can remove himself when the energy no longer feels safe. A man who can walk away from drama is a man who can lead a relationship with strength, not ego. Stepping away also reveals the truth of the connection. When he steps back, he sees who reaches out, who reflects, who understands, and she sees what life feels like without his presence. It exposes effort, intention, and alignment in a way constant proximity never could. The space he creates becomes a mirror for both sides. This act of self-respect is also an act of emotional discipline. It's easy to stay. It's easy to argue. It's easy to react. What's hard is pausing. What's hard is choosing silence over explosion. What's hard is saying, I need space, and actually taking it. That level of control is attractive because it shows emotional intelligence, a sign that the man knows how to handle life, not just love. So stepping away isn't abandonment. It is self-awareness. It is self-preservation. It is the refusal to sacrifice inner stability for temporary comfort. And when a man carries himself with that level of self-respect, it transforms how he loves, how he communicates, and how he is valued. A man who can walk away shows he's not controlled by validation or fear. He isn't driven by the need to be chosen, approved, praised, or constantly reassured. His sense of worth comes from within, not from how someone treats him in the moment. That inner stability makes him powerful, calm, and centered in a world where so many people cling to relationships just to fill emotional gaps. When he can walk away, he communicates that he doesn't need external validation to define his identity. He knows who he is before anyone tells him who he should be. Fear is what keeps most people stuck. Fear of losing someone, fear of being alone, fear of the unknown. But a man who can walk away faces those fears instead of being ruled by them. He understands that staying in a situation that doesn't honor him is far more painful than the fear of letting go. He chooses long-term peace over short-term comfort. He won't stay where he's disrespected. He won't chase where he's not valued. He won't cling to someone who's inconsistent. His ability to walk away shows he trusts himself enough to believe that better will come or that the right things will return naturally. This kind of man is emotionally independent. He doesn't rely on someone else's attention to feel significant. He doesn't crumble when affection is withdrawn. He doesn't panic when things shift. Instead, he observes, he assesses, and he acts from strength, not insecurity. And women feel that difference instantly. When a man is not controlled by fear, he communicates through his actions that he is grounded, stable, and mature. When he's not driven by validation, he becomes effortless, confident, and attractive because nothing about him is desperate. Walking away also shows he's not controlled by the fear of emotional turbulence. He doesn't stay just to avoid conflict. He doesn't force harmony where there is none. Instead, he steps back when things no longer align, knowing that silence can reveal more than arguments ever could. He knows that walking away isn't giving up. It's choosing clarity over confusion. It's choosing respect over attachment. It's choosing emotional safety over emotional chaos. And the truth is, when a man can walk away, the entire dynamic of the relationship shifts. His absence speaks louder than any argument. It shows exactly where he places his value. It exposes the difference between someone who stayed out of fear and someone who stayed out of intention. A man who can walk away doesn't manipulate. He doesn't threaten. He doesn't dramatize. He simply decides that his mental and emotional well-being are non-negotiable. This strength makes him trustworthy. A man who isn't ruled by validation or fear is a man who won't project insecurity onto the relationship. He won't make his partner responsible for his self-worth. He won't attach himself to someone out of loneliness. He chooses from a place of confidence, not dependency. His love is powerful because it's not driven by need. It's driven by truth. A man who can walk away isn't heartless. He's aware. He knows what he deserves. He knows when to stay and he knows when to go. And that choice made from strength instead of fear is what makes him impossible to manipulate and deeply respected. Women feel safest with a man who has boundaries, not attachment wounds. Boundaries create stability, structure, and emotional safety. Attachment wounds create chaos, confusion, and inconsistency. A man with boundaries understands where he ends and where others begin. He knows how to communicate what he can accept, what he cannot allow, and what he needs to protect his emotional well-being. This makes a woman feel safe because she knows exactly who he is and how he will show up. There are no hidden fears, no unpredictable reactions, no emotional volatility. He stands firmly in himself. A man with attachment wounds, however, often moves from fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of not being loved, fear of losing someone. These fears shape his behavior more than clarity or intention. He may cling, overreact, or shut down. He may demand reassurance instead of communicating needs. He may tolerate disrespect just to avoid being alone. And while he might care deeply, his emotional instability feels unsafe. A woman doesn't feel held by his presence. She feels responsible for his triggers. She feels like she has to manage his emotions, soften everything she says, or walk on eggshells to keep him calm. That's not love. That's emotional pressure. Boundaries, on the other hand, are a form of emotional intelligence. A man with boundaries can say no without guilt and yes without fear. He understands that love is not about losing himself. He knows how to step back when something crosses a line. He knows how to communicate when something hurts him. This emotional maturity makes a woman feel safe because she knows he can regulate himself. She doesn't have to mother him. She doesn't have to heal him. She can trust his strength. Women feel safest with a man who has boundaries because he is consistent. Consistency is the foundation of emotional security. When a man has boundaries, his actions match his words. His energy doesn't shift suddenly. He doesn't explode emotionally. He doesn't disappear out of fear and come back out of desperation. He sets the tone. He creates stability. He builds trust through behavior, not promises. A man with attachment wounds may say he loves her, but his fears sabotage that love. He may become jealous, controlling, insecure, or overly dependent. His love becomes heavy. His emotions become unpredictable. His reactions come from past pain, not present reality. And while she may care, she cannot relax around him. She cannot soften. She cannot feel feminine and safe because she's too busy avoiding his triggers. Safety comes from emotional awareness. A man with boundaries has done the inner work. He understands himself. He doesn't project his pain onto her. He doesn't expect her to fix him. He communicates from honesty, not panic. Women relax around men like this because they can trust his emotional stability. They know he won't collapse under pressure. They know he won't make them responsible for his feelings. They know he will handle conflict with clarity, not fear. Women feel safest with a man who has boundaries because he leads with emotional responsibility. He's not driven by wounds. He's guided by wisdom. He's not seeking healing from her. He's already healing himself. His presence becomes a calm space, not an emotional battlefield. And that difference is exactly what transforms a connection from fragile to deeply secure. His distance communicates clarity, not confusion. When a man chooses to create space, he is not disappearing to cause doubt or emotional insecurity. He is stepping back because something within him is telling him to observe, reflect, and understand the situation without the noise of heightened emotion. His distance is intentional, not reactive. It comes from a place of wanting to see the truth, not from wanting to punish. And that kind of distance, rather than creating chaos, creates clarity. A man who takes space when needed is not trying to confuse a woman. He is grounding himself. He is stepping out of the emotional storm so he can return with calmness, not confusion, with direction, not desperation. His distance tells her that he is not operating from impulse. He is not saying things in the heat of the moment. He is not making decisions from emotional overwhelm. He is pausing to think, which is something most people don't do when conflict or tension rises. In a world where so many people respond instantly without reflection, without perspective, a man who takes distance stands out because his silence is not avoidance. It is a sign of emotional discipline. When emotions are high, distance becomes wisdom. He gives himself the space to understand what he feels, what he wants, and what he cannot accept. And that clarity becomes evident not only in his actions, but in the energy he brings back. Women often misunderstand distance as disinterest, but true distance from a mature man is the opposite. It shows he respects the connection enough not to damage it with rushed reactions. He values the relationship enough to pause instead of pushing. He cares enough to step back so that he can return with intention. His distance also allows her to see the reality of the connection without his presence constantly filling the room. Space reveals truth. When he isn't there, she has the chance to notice how she feels, what she misses, what she needs, and what she may have overlooked. Distance doesn't create confusion. It removes noise. It makes everything clearer. It shows what is genuine and what was just habit. It shows what matters and what doesn't. It shows whether feelings grow or fade when the constant interaction stops. His distance can also communicate boundaries without words. It says, I will not participate in chaos, or I need time to process, or this energy doesn't feel right for me right now. Instead of forcing a conversation when he is not centered, he steps away to regain balance. That is not confusing. It is responsible. It is mature. It is emotionally grounded. A man who uses distance intentionally doesn't need to explain himself every time. His patterns speak for him. His energy becomes his message. His return shows clarity. His silence shows reflection. His presence shows intention. And a woman who pays attention will feel the difference between a man who distances himself out of avoidant behavior and a man who distances himself out of emotional intelligence. His distance communicates that he knows himself. He knows when something feels off. He knows when he needs time to breathe. He knows that clarity cannot come from force, only from space. And ultimately, his distance communicates something deeper, that he wants to show up as the best version of himself, not the reactive one. A man who steps away removes himself from emotional chaos instead of reacting to it. He understands that reacting in the heat of the moment rarely leads to clarity. It only escalates what's already tense. Instead of matching the intensity of the situation, he chooses to pull his energy back. That choice is not weakness. It is emotional intelligence. It shows a level of self-awareness that most people never cultivate. The ability to pause instead of erupt, to reflect instead of retaliate, to understand instead of attack. When conflict rises, chaos tries to pull everyone into its center. Emotions surge. Words get sharper. Thoughts get clouded. It becomes easy to lose control. But a man who can step away refuses to get consumed by that moment. He recognizes when a conversation has stopped being productive. He can sense when the energy has shifted from understanding to defending. Instead of throwing more fire into the situation, he walks away to avoid burning the connection further. He steps back because protecting the relationship matters more to him than winning the argument. This kind of man isn't afraid of confrontation. He is simply not addicted to emotional battles. He doesn't need to prove his strength with volume or dominance. His strength shows in his restraint, in his ability to stay grounded when the environment becomes unstable. He uses distance not as punishment, but as a tool to reset the emotional temperature. He knows that sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is stay silent until he can speak with intention rather than impulse. Walking away from emotional chaos also allows him to see the situation more clearly. When he steps back, his mind stops racing, his emotions settle, his perspective widens. He is able to understand what happened, what triggered the tension, and what part he may have played. Distance gives him emotional clarity that reacting never could. And when he returns with a calmness that changes the entire dynamic of the conversation. Women feel the difference instantly. A man who reacts adds tension. A man who steps away brings peace. His presence becomes a calming force rather than a source of stress. She knows that even if things get heated, he won't lose control. He won't say things he can't take back. He won't escalate the situation just to satisfy his ego. He values emotional safety for himself and for her. Stepping away also helps him maintain self-respect. He refuses to stay in environments that provoke the worst in him. He refuses to let chaos dictate his behavior. He refuses to allow emotional storms to make him someone he is not. Instead, he protects his peace by creating space. That is a powerful form of self-control, one that makes him more trustworthy, more stable, and more grounded. A man who steps away isn't avoiding the relationship. He's protecting it. He's preserving the connection by refusing to let chaos shape it. He chooses to pause so he can show up from a place of clarity, integrity, and emotional maturity. And that choice is what makes his presence deeply valued and his leadership naturally respected. Women trust men who choose their peace over pointless power struggles. A man who values peace is not weak. He is wise. He understands that not every disagreement deserves a battle. Not every moment requires dominance, and not every challenge is an invitation to prove himself. Instead of turning a relationship into a competition of who's right or who wins, he rises above the need to control or overpower. His priority is stability, not ego, and that creates an emotional environment where a woman can exhale, soften, and trust him. Men who engage in constant power struggles often operate from insecurity. They argue to be right. They raise their voice to feel in control, and they turn simple moments into emotional wars. That kind of energy is exhausting. It drains connection, kills intimacy, and replaces harmony with tension. But a man who values his peace knows that true strength comes from control, not confrontation. He doesn't get triggered by small things. He doesn't feel threatened by disagreements. He doesn't escalate situations to protect his pride. Instead, he chooses to remain steady, calm, and centered. Women trust this kind of man because he feels safe. Safe emotionally, safe mentally, safe energetically. She knows he won't use arguments as weapons. She knows he won't turn misunderstandings into battles. She knows he won't push her into emotional corners just to feel superior. His peace becomes a form of leadership, not the loud, forceful kind, the grounded, mature kind that makes her feel protected rather than controlled. Choosing peace doesn't mean he avoids hard conversations. It means he handles them with intention rather than aggression. He listens. He reflects. He communicates without attacking. He expresses himself without belittling. He can stand firm without being cruel. And he can disagree without becoming disrespectful. That balance shows emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence builds trust far faster than dominance ever could. A man who values peace knows how to step back when things are escalating, not to withdraw, but to prevent damage. He doesn't allow his emotions to dictate the moment. He doesn't stay in conversations that are turning toxic. He knows when to pause and when to speak. And that self-awareness creates a stable emotional environment, one where both people can grow instead of constantly defend themselves. Women trust men like this because they know he will not lose himself in chaos. They know he will not react out of fear or anger. They know he will not let temporary emotions destroy long-term connection. His peace becomes a signal of emotional maturity, showing her he's capable of handling life's pressures without collapsing or exploding. Power struggles are rooted in insecurity, but peace is rooted in confidence. A man who chooses peace shows that he is secure enough to release the need for control, strong enough to walk away from drama, and wise enough to protect the bond rather than damage it. Women feel safe with this kind of man because his calmness becomes a foundation. His stability becomes a reassurance. His emotional composure becomes a form of trust. Stepping away lets her see the truth of her own feelings without pressure. When a man creates distance, he removes the noise, the expectations, the emotional intensity, and the constant presence that can cloud a woman's clarity. Space is not a punishment, it's a mirror. It allows her to reflect without influence, to feel without interference, and to realize what is truly coming from her heart rather than from the momentum of the moment. Distance gives her the chance to understand what she genuinely values, what she misses, what she overlooks, and what she may have taken for granted when he was always right there. When a man steps back, she suddenly feels the absence of his energy, the calmness he brings, the emotional grounding he offers, the consistency he provides. She begins to notice whether she feels relieved or uncomfortable, at peace or unsettled. Those reactions speak louder than any conversation. They reveal the emotional truth she sometimes ignores when everything is moving too fast. Without him trying to explain, fix, impress, or soothe her, she gets to meet her own emotions honestly. She gets to see whether she is drawn to him naturally or only reacting to the situation. Space reveals what pressure hides. When he steps away, she no longer feels the need to respond immediately, to match his energy, to manage his emotions, or to navigate his presence. She is free to feel without expectation. She can explore the depth of her own heart, her fears, her desires, and her doubts without the weight of someone watching or waiting. This emotional freedom often leads her to a deeper understanding of the connection. She begins to see what truly matters and what doesn't. She notices what she values about him, things she might have overlooked when he was always available. And in that space, something powerful happens. She realizes the difference between comfort and connection. Comfort is easy to confuse with love when someone is always present, but connection is felt most clearly when their presence is removed. If she feels empty instead of relieved, if she misses his presence instead of enjoying the silence, if she finds herself thinking about his voice, his steadiness, his energy, those are the truths that only distance can reveal. Stepping away also removes performance from the equation. When he's right there, she may feel pressure to act a certain way, respond a certain way, or keep the interaction smooth. But in his absence, she doesn't have to manage anything. Her feelings surface naturally without the influence of his reactions or expectations. She sees what her heart does on its own, not what it does in response to him. This is why stepping away is not manipulation. It's emotional wisdom. It gives both people the chance to meet their truth without noise. It shows her whether she wants to reach out, whether she wants to take accountability, whether she wants to move forward or create distance. It reveals whether her attachment is real or reactive. And when she comes to her own clarity, that clarity is deeper, cleaner, and more authentic than anything forced through constant interaction. Stepping away allows her to see her truth, not the truth shaped by his presence, but the truth shaped by her heart. And that truth is the foundation of a real lasting connection. A man who walks away at the right time becomes a man she respects because he respects himself first. His ability to step back is not an act of pride, punishment, or emotional distance. It is an act of self-worth. He understands that staying in situations where he feels undervalued, unheard, or emotionally drained does more harm than good. Walking away becomes his way of saying, "I matter too." And a woman feels that she respects a man who treats himself with the dignity he expects from others. A man who respects himself doesn't tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional chaos. He doesn't cling to someone just because he fears losing them. He doesn't shrink himself to keep the peace or trade his self-esteem for temporary affection. Instead, he honors his standards, his boundaries, and his emotional health. That strength is what makes him admirable. A woman respects him because he refuses to abandon himself even for love. Walking away at the right time doesn't make him cold. It makes him wise. He understands that love without respect cannot sustain itself. He knows that staying in the wrong energy turns affection into resentment.